Good morning, True Spirit. Good morning. Good morning. Looking beautiful today. Happy first Sunday in September. Amen. We're going to go into devotion. We want you to come and join in with us, please, and help lift up Jesus. We have a scripture by Deacon Little John, a prayer by Deacon Munn. We have Deacon Wright sing. All right now, amen. I sneak that in. No, but join in with us, please, if you will. Please stand for the reading of the word.
Amen. Good morning, True Spirit. Good morning. The God we serve is awesome. So we got to always abide in him, and he abide in us. Amen. The word this morning is coming from John 15, verses 1 through 8. Amen. The word reads as such. I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. You are already clean because of the word which I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit for itself, unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me, I in him, much fruit, for without me you can do nothing. I read you John 15, verses 1 through 8. May the Lord have blessed the hearers, the readers, and most importantly, the doers of his holy word. You may be seated.
Thank you, sir.
Let us pray. Most holy and all-wise God, our Heavenly Father, it is once again that we, your servants, have come before you this morning to thank you for all the many rich blessings which thou hast bestowed upon us from our earliest existence of life, even right now to this present time. We thank you because you've been mighty good to us, better to us in many cases than we've been ourselves. You've watched us, you've kept us, you let us go and come without being harmed, either molested. And then you brought us out this morning to the house of worship to once again call upon your holy and righteous name. We thank you for the many things that you've done for us. We ask you to please forgive us for the many sins that we might have committed, for every vain or idle thought, any words we might have said that wasn't pleasing to you. We ask you to continue to bless True Spirit in a special way, his leadership and his membership. Bless us that we will always be conscious that you are the great physician, the leader, and the guider. We ask you to bless our pastor in a special way. Bless the entire membership. Keep us in your care. And then, Father, we bless the sick ones this morning that we may have among us, our bereaved families, if it be thy will. These things we ask in thy name. Amen.
Help me sing this little song. All day long I've been with Jesus. It has been a wonderful day. I have climbed up one step higher in that good old-fashioned way. I have spoken words of kindness. Lord, you know if I've gone wrong. Well, I've got to make it right so I can testify tonight. I've been with Jesus all day long. Now you know it. All day long I've been with Jesus. Oh, it has been a wonderful day. Well, I have climbed up one step higher in that good old-fashioned way. Well, I have spoken words of kindness. Oh, Lord, you know if I've done wrong. Well, and I've got to make it right so I can testify tonight. I've been with Jesus all day long. One more time. Well, all day long I've been with Jesus. Oh, it's been a wonderful day. Well, I have climbed up one step higher in that good old-fashioned way. Well, I have spoken words of kindness. Lord, you know if I've done wrong. Thank you, sir. Well, I've got to make it right so I can testify tonight. I've been with Jesus all day long. Turn it over to the pulpit.
Good morning, church. We should be good and rested with this new time, right? Amen. Don't sound like it in here. Good morning, church. We serve a risen Savior, don't we? Right. Aren't we glad about it?
Yeah, I'm glad.
Responsive reading. I want you to pay close attention to what it said. It said, this is the church covenant, right? Each and every one of us believers, we are not the building, right? We the church, right? Yes. So what we're about to read, we come in agreement with this covenant, right? That is the agreement, right? Oh, yes. All right, y'all. With I will be the leader, you will be the congregation. Amen. Amen. The word of God say, having been led, as we believe, by the Spirit of God to receive the Lord Jesus Christ as our Savior, and on the profession of our faith, having been baptized in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost, we do now in the presence of God, angels, and this assembly, most solemnly and joyfully enter into covenant with one another as one body in Christ. Congregation.
We engage, therefore, by the aid of the Holy Spirit, to walk together in Christian love, to strive for the advancement of this church in knowledge, holiness, and comfort, to promote its prosperity and spirituality, to sustain its worship, ordinances, discipline, and doctrines, to contribute cheerfully and regularly to the support of the ministry, the expenses of the church, the relief of the poor, and the spread of the gospel through all nations.
We also engage and maintain families in secret devotion to religiously educate our children, to seek the salvation of our kindreds and acquaintances, to walk circumspectly in the world, to be just of our dealing, faithful in our engagement, and exemplary in our deportment, to avoid all tattletelling, tattletelling, bite, excessive anger, to abstain from the sale and use of intoxicating drinks as beverages, and to be zealous in the effort to advance the kingdom of our Savior. Congregation.
We further engage to watch over one another in brotherly love, to remember each other in prayer, to aid each other in sickness and distress, to cultivate Christian sympathy and feeling and courtesy in speech, to be slow to take offense, but always ready for reconciliation, and mindful of the rules of our Savior, to secure without neglect.
We also engage to maintain family.
We moreover engage that when we remove from this place, we will as soon as possible unite with some other church where we can carry out the spirit of this covenant and the principles of God's words. All.
And now unto him who brought again from the dead our Lord Jesus Christ, be power and glory forever. Amen.
Amen. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you.
Amen. At the church, say amen. I just want to make sure I'm not the only one here this morning. That's all. Just checking on you. It's time for altar call. We want to take this opportunity to ask everybody, if you can and you're able to stand and walk, that you would join us at the altar, that we can pray together as a church, as a family. Now, don't be shy. We don't bite now. We family. We family up in here. All right. Let us bow our heads. Dear Lord, we thank you. We lift your name on high. We give you all the praise, all the glory, because you alone are God, the one and only living and true God. Father, we worship your name. We humble ourselves before you, O God, asking for forgiveness and overlook our sins that we have done, Lord God. Throw them into the sea of forgetfulness, Lord God, that we can receive your blessings, receive your message, and hear your voice, O God. Father God, as we join together as a church, Lord God, all these people together touching and agreeing, Lord God, we're asking you to do mighty things in the name of Jesus. Lord, I don't know what they are, but in the name of Jesus, I claim it right now. We claim it on behalf of the church, Lord God. Move on us, Lord God. Move on us, Lord God. Father God, we ask that you send a shift in this atmosphere, Lord God. Just shift this atmosphere, Lord God. Allow us to worship you in spirit and truth, Lord God. Allow us to grow in spirit and in truth, Lord God. Lift our hearts, Lord God. Lift our minds. Change our minds, Lord God, that we are focused on you, Lord God. Lord, allow us to remove the things that are bothering us, Lord God, our infirmities, Lord God, our thoughts, Lord God, the ill will that we have towards people, God. We ask that you just remove it and clean our heart in the name of Jesus, I pray. Father God, as we stand here today, Lord God, just lift us, lift our health, oh God. Lord, those that are sick and shut in and those that are here that may be ill, Lord God, we ask that you put your hand on us and clean us from the inside out, Lord God. Bind us as we are the branch and you are the vine, Lord God. Without you, we can do nothing. So, God, with that said, we need you, oh God, and we're not afraid to admit it. We need you, oh God. We are weak without you, Lord God. We are weak without you, oh God. Our power is nothing, but you are everything. Father God, just continue to bless this service, bless this church, Lord God, as we grow and continue to change in your name, that we do it in your name and not in vain. Lord, thank you for blessing us with the opportunity to be able to reach out to the community, Lord God. Lord knows how many people we blessed and how many more we will bless in the future. But God, we thank you. Father God, we just give you all the praise and glory and honor and all these things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good morning, True Spirit. Good morning. At this time, we can all, as we continue in our worship, this is our offering time. This is where we can all play a part. This is where we all can do something to show our love towards our God for all that He has done for us. And Malachi says to give our tithes and our offerings. And so we want to bring all our tithes and our offerings at this time. We're going to turn it over in the hands of the ushers and deacons.
for blessing me. Pick it up. I just want to praise forever and ever and ever.
For all He's done for me. Father God, we just want to say thank you this morning for this offering. God, we ask that it'll be used to your glory and honor to lifting up the kingdom, God. We pray for those, God, who had to give and those who had not to give, that they would have, God, you would give to them that they may have to give on the next time, God. And we give all the glory and praise to you in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
This is the period of our service in which we acknowledge our visitors. If you are a visitor, a True Spirit Baptist Church, would you please stand at this time and remain standing as our greeters ministry have a gift for you. Amen.
Praise the Lord, everybody. Praise the Lord. My name is Johnny Arnold, Deacon Arnold from Rex, Georgia, member of Rocky Mount Baptist Church, where the King family, Papa King's daddy, is laid. And it's just a pleasure to be back out here. I've been out here, stayed out here for over 30 years. Now I'm down in Georgia. Amen. And it's always a pleasure to be in the house of God. Amen. Amen.
I'm Devon Hastings. I'm from Tampa, Florida, and I'm visiting my friend Marion Jackson, and I hope I can enjoy today's worship with you guys.
We'd like to thank you for gracing us with your presence today. You could have gone anywhere to worship, but we thank you for choosing True Spirit to worship with. And we have a saying here. God loves you, we love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Amen. We do have a couple special announcements before the overhead. One is the Christmas Dinner Planning Committee will meet this coming Thursday, September 5th at 6 p.m. All those who wish to be a part, please come out on this coming Thursday. Also, will all the women of True Spirit please stand at this time? Saturday, September 7th, it's our women's retreat. The theme is Diamond in the Rough. Our scriptures from James 1 and 12. The location is the Penrose Carriage House. That's behind the Broadmoor Hotel. The cost is $15, which will cover a light breakfast, lunch, and a light snack. Please sign up today. The women are asked to wear denim and diamonds. If you're like me, you don't have a bunch of diamonds, so just bling it out. The payment is due today. And I had all of you to stand because I want participation. We need participation from all the women. All this power that will descend onto Broadmoor Hotel, we can turn it out. Amen? Amen. Please pay attention to the announcements and overhead.
This is Pastor Greg, True Spirit Baptist Church. We're here doing the backpack and shoes for our community, giving back. Just look at this awesome turnout.
want to thank True Spirit Church and Pastor Greer and Minister as well for this blessing. I'm just so grateful for the supplies and the shoes she's unbelievable, and what you guys are doing is truly a blessing. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
I'm very, very thankful for the church that you are giving away, and it's a blessing that you're giving it away for the kids that need it for school. I want to thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Give an honor to Pastor Grill, Mrs. Grill, and the other associate minister and pastor at the True Spirit Baptist Church. We just want to say thank you that the Lord blessed us, and you blessed us with the stuff for our kids. Without y'all, we don't know what we do. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen.
Amen.
She got my grandson and my nephew.
Hello, we're here at True Spirit Baptist Church, and we were just coming to pick up some bags and school supplies that they have provided for us, and it's been such a blessing to help us out. We can't get everything, but what we couldn't feel, they fulfilled for us, and we truly are blessed. Thank you so much.
Hello, I came to the True Spirit Baptist Church and we got free backpack, free shoes, and a haircut, and we're so blessed to receive it. Thank you so much.
First Lady, for giving us this event for the kids. It's a great thing. And I appreciate it. Me and my family appreciate it. We need the whole.
Hi, this is a blessing for us because we couldn't get our children back and stuff. And you guys are going through, it's really awesome and awesome, and we appreciate it. And I just want to say thank you because it's a blessing to the community. And like I said, we love you guys. Thank you very much.
Good morning! Welcome to a new month here on September 1st. I'm Jamie, and let's get started with this week's announcements. We all live busy lives, but that doesn't mean you have to be too busy for God. You can watch services live and on demand right on our channel, TSBC Media, on YouTube. Now, Sundays are always best when they start with our Sunday school to learn more about God's Word. Classes begin at 9:30 every Sunday, and if you recently joined True Spirit, we have a class just for you, and it occurs every Sunday in the fellowship hall starting at the same time. Then at 11 a.m., you can stick around for our Sunday worship service. On Saturday, September 7th, we will have our women's retreat called Diamond in the Rough. It will occur at Julie Penrose Carriage House, and the cost is $15, which covers a light breakfast, lunch, and snack. If you are interested in attending, you can sign up in the vestibule. Looking ahead, we will have our leadership seminar on Saturday, September 21st, starting at 8:30 a.m. All leaders and co-leaders need to be in attendance. Finally, we will be holding an event called Pastor's Corner on Saturday, October 12th, starting at 10 a.m. Registration is $10, and all pastors and ministers are invited to attend. Now that does it for our upcoming events. Keep up with what's going on with us by searching and liking us on Facebook at True Spirit Baptist Church. Now here are the rest of your weekly announcements. And remember, God loves you, I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it, even if you try. Have a blessed week.
Come on, let's put our hands together. Come on in the house. Lord, you are good. Say, Lord, you are good, and your mercy endures forever. Say, Lord, you are good, yeah. Lord, you are good, and your mercy endures forever. Come on, Lord, you are good, yeah. Lord, you are good, and your mercy endures forever. Come on, let's help. Lord, you are good, yeah. Lord, you are good, and your mercy endures forever. Here we go. People from every nation, from generation to generation. Come on, we worship. Hallelujah. We worship you for who you are. We worship. Hallelujah. We worship you for who you are. Come on, let's get excited. If you know that he's good, let's celebrate because he is a good God and his mercy is everlasting. Come on in the house. Let's sing it again. Lord, you are good, yeah. Lord, you are good and your mercy endureth forever. Come on and help us say, Lord, you are good, yeah. Lord, you are good and your mercy endureth forever. Lord, you are good, yeah. If you believe he's good, come on and help us sing it. Lord, you are good, yeah. Lord, you are good and your mercy endureth forever. Let's make a change. People from every nation, from generation to generation. Come on. We worship. Yeah. Hallelujah. Yeah. We worship you for who you are. Hallelujah. Yeah. We worship you for who you are. You are good. Come on now, you know he's good. Come on, help us sing in the house of God. Help us say, so good, yeah. Yes, you are, yes, you are, yes, you are. Come on, let me get a witness. Help us say, you are good all the time, all the time. You are good. Come on. You are good. Help us say, all the time, all the time. You are good. You are good. Yeah. All the time. And all the time. You are good. You are good. You are good. Yeah. All the time. All the time. Come on. You are good. You are good. You are good. Yeah. All the time. All the time. You are good. You are good. You are good. You are good. Yeah. All the time. All the time. Lord, you are good. Yeah.
Amen. And the saints of God said, Amen. Amen. Those that love him gave him a celebratory praise. Amen. If he's truly been good to you, come on, let's bless the Lord. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, and all that is within. For the earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, and they that dwell within. Look at somebody and say, neighbor, I got a reason to praise him. Look at him again and smile and tell him, neighbor, I got a reason to praise him. Come on, let's give him one more big clap. Amen. We're grateful for what God is doing. Amen. We're excited about what he has already done, and we're overjoyed with what he's about to do. So today is a good day, and today I will rejoice and be glad in it. Just a few things. True Spirit, give yourselves a hand. Amen. I first want to tell you thank you for your response to the request as we were able to bless over 100 children yesterday. Amen. We gave out 102 backpacks, 110 pair of shoes. We cut 30 heads and done 30 heads on yesterday. That's enough to say thank you. Amen. Amen. My cup was so full yesterday when I saw the people lining up on the outside as early as 8:30 in the morning. They were informed by some of our members, and they brought their children, and they waited so patiently. And those that came, and we were able to talk to them, pray with them, and fellowship. All the helpers that helped, I just say thank you so much for taking out some time to further help God's children. We had a great time yesterday, and it wouldn't have taken place without True Spirit responding to the petition that was given before us, because the Bible said it's our job to help those that may appear to be less fortunate than we are. But it's also our job to make sure that his children will not go lacking. And so as the Lord imposed those mission journeys and mission jobs, I will put the petition out to our church family, because we're more than a church that sit inside a beautiful building. Amen, somebody. Amen. And so we're a church that go outside the four walls, because that's required of us, that we go ye therefore and teach them the gospel and compel them to come. And where do we want them to come? To the house of God. So we're grateful for what happened on yesterday. Again, I ask that you keep us in prayer as we continue to do the works of the Lord. Amen. I'm soliciting as well, if you are a person that's handy with repairs, we have a good trustee board, but we want to add to it that can help assist us with some repairs in-house and maybe have some resources on the outhouse. If you're interested, please see me and I will talk with you, but we want to add to our trustee board that we can continue to help them as we continue to further keep the beautifying of this church together. Amen? Amen. We're grateful that we had a church meeting and found out that we had a great anniversary response in our financial report. Amen. So we're glad about that as well. Amen. And so we thank God for all those that played a role in the part for that, to help bring more funds in to do beautiful things here at True Spirit. Amen. God is in the blessing business. There is no Bible study Tuesday, so you get a break. And you already know your homework assignment. You read it this morning. It was the church covenant. For those that don't know, your homework assignment is to find scripture that relate to each paragraph that's in the church covenant. And so you got a week off. So you get to cheat a little bit and bring it on the following week. So there will be no Bible study on Tuesday. Also, I ask that you continue to pray for our own Deacon Powell. He is home. He's eating well. He's full of energy. He's talking, and he said, Pastor, I'll be back soon after I go on vacation for a little while. So I told him, you do what you need to do, but most importantly, do what the doctors have told you to do. Amen. It's good to listen to those that God has given the gift and talent to that can help us with our lives. Amen. Amen. Also, I just want to encourage you all, those leaders of True Spirit, that on the 21st of this month, we will be having our leadership seminar. I'm asking all leaders, presidents, vice presidents, and even secretaries to be present along with our ministers and deacons as we learn what leadership should be like and what it should do in ministry. Amen. We will have a light breakfast and a light lunch. It's starting at 8:30 and it's ending at 3 o'clock. So I'm just asking that you would give a little of your time on that Saturday to come and hear. In that process, we will hear how to put together a budget from our ministries, from Sister Piper herself, and then we'll hear other things that will keep us strong in ministry. Amen. We've been talking about this in Bible study. Though we don't have it, we talked about, is there schism in the church? And the question is asked because Paul says there should not be schism in the church in 1 Corinthians. He tells us that schism is a way of formulating busybodies. And we've talked about how busybodies are often those that like to gossip. And when they gossip, they're covering up themselves in a major request of prayer. And so we've been talking about this in Bible study, and we're finding out in Jeremiah chapter 7, as Jeremiah is talking to the people at the church, that we are required to do some things to help the next generation. But he also brings us to our remembrance. He says we are becoming people that are doing what our ancestors did worse. And so therefore he says, now the Lord has told him, when they cry, don't even come to me and pray, because I'm not listening. And you do know we all have been given a charge to bless those that are underneath us. We've been given a charge to be leaders and be examples for those that may not know what a leader or an example looks like. And even in our Sunday school this morning, as we were talking about the Sodom and Gomorrah, we talked about why the angels told him to go to the mountain and he didn't go. And the Bible tells us that he didn't go, but later his wife looked back and was turned into a pillar of salt. Now understand something, as I stated, when you go to the mountain, if you read about the mountains in the Bible, there was areas where we went to the mountain to be cleansed, or holiness was in the mountain. God would not allow wickedness to go to righteous places. And so therefore you cannot carry your wicked, your uncunning, your deceitful and vicious behaviors and ways into the kingdom of God. And so therefore we have to get rid of schism. How do we get rid of schism? Constantly praying. And so we want to invite you, not this week but the week after, to come and be a part of our Bible study as we talk at 11:30 and 7 o'clock on, is there schism in the church? Here's my other question to you this week to chew on. How much schism do you play? How big is the percentage in which you play a role in the schism at True Spirit or any other church you may go to? Because here it is. God's got his eye on you. And he's talking to us. And he's giving us a message that if we're going to keep doing schism, he don't even want to hear our prayers. So we want to do better. Amen. So we invite you on Tuesday to be a part of that. Amen. And I guarantee you'll have a good time. If you have questions, you're more than welcome to bring them, and we'll talk about them as well. Amen. Y'all smile a little bit. It's a good day. Amen. Amen. I ask you all to pray for our church family. Continue to pray for many of our members that we may know that is sick, maybe on the dangerous highways. As you all prepare to celebrate the holiday on tomorrow, please be careful, be safe, and enjoy one another. Amen. Let's give the choir a hand as they come again. If you have a reason to lift him up, can you do it for about 1 second? If you have a reason to be thankful, show him what your thankful praise looks like. You mean somebody should be jumping because the enemy didn't take you out last night. Somebody should find joy in serving and praising a God such as he. Isn't he worthy? He's worthy. Just do me a favor. Just high five somebody and say he's worthy. He's worthy. He's worthy. He was worthy of the praise. These tears I cry is because he's worthy of the praise. My hands can wave because he's worthy of the praise. I can smile because he's worthy of the praise. He's worthy of the praise. He's a good God. Amen. Amen. I've had some good days. I've had some hills to climb. I've had some weary days and sleepless nights. But when I look around and I think things over, all of my good days outweigh my bad days. I won't complain. Sometimes the cloud hang low. How many know sometimes I can hardly see the road? I ask the question, Lord, why so much pain? But he knows what's best for me. Although my weary eyes cannot see, so I'll just say thank you, Lord. I won't complain. Sometimes my clouds hang low. I can hardly see the road. I don't know about y'all, but sometimes I have to ask the question, Lord, why so much pain? But the Spirit of the Lord tells me, but he knows what's best for me. Anybody been there before? Although my weary eyes can't see, so I'll just say thank you, Lord. I won't complain. God, he's been good to me. He's been so good to me. More than this world could ever be. He's been good to me. He dried my tears away, turned my midnights into day. And I'll just say, thank you, Lord. When they talk about me and call me everything but a child of God, I'll just say, thank you, Lord. When food is low, I can just still say thank you, Lord. When all my friends done turned and walked away from me, I can still lift my hands and say thank you, Lord. When my children have gone astray, I can still say thank you, Lord. When the doctor has walked in the room and said it's over, you got 6 months to live, you're soon gonna die, I can say thank you, Lord. When I look at my bills and my money don't add up to my bills, I can say thank you, Lord. I won't complain. He dried my tears away. Turn my midnights today. Thank you, Holy Ghost. I can say thank you, Lord. Putting food on my table, I can say thank you, Lord. Sticking with me closer than a brother, I can say thank you, Lord. When I got to stand all by myself, I can say thank you, Lord. You don't know what the Lord has done for me. I can say thank you, Lord. He's been better to me than I've been to myself. I can say thank you, Lord. He's been bread. He's been water. He's been clothes. He's been my counselor. I can say thank you, Lord. I wish somebody could just slip up your hands. When I got migraines and my body just don't act right, I can say thank you, Lord. Been through this surgery. Been through that surgery. Gotta go back again. I can say thank you, Lord. I won't complain. Come on, let's just give God a 1 second. A 1 second of I won't complain praise. Woo-hoo. My. That's it. Make the enemy mad. Somebody should be screaming at the top of their lungs. The enemy thought he had you. I wish I had some survivors that can say I was covered by the blood of Jesus. Y'all ain't hearing me this morning. I was covered by the blood of Jesus. My children were covered. Covered on my job. Covered in the courthouse. Covered in the doctor's office. Do you know what covered means? That's favor. Touch somebody and tell them you got favor. No, you ain't touching them. Favor ain't just for you, it's for everybody. Just touch them, say, you got favor. 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 Ah! Some of y'all don't know when to shout, but I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to leave it there. He's worthy to be praised. He's worthy to be praised. My Lord. Thank you, Holy Ghost. Thank you, Holy Ghost, for your presence. Thank you, Holy Ghost, for breathing a fresh anointing upon us. Father, it's preaching time. Songs have been sung, gifts have been given. Lord, we feel your presence. God, I ask you that you let me decrease so that you can increase in me. Hide me behind this sacred desk. Lord, let someone see your image upon me, hear your voice through me. But Father, I pray that this word falls on fertile soil and disrupts stony ground. So Lord, now I ask that you let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. Oh Lord, I praise you and give you all adoration and glory because you're my Redeemer. And the household of faith said, amen. Amen. With your manuals of life, turn with me to the Gospel of John. John chapter 17. If you're able to stand in respect and reverence to the word, please stand. John chapter 14. John chapter 14. We're going to start at verse 12. If you have it, say amen. If you're still looking, shout out Bible study. We don't discriminate. Whoever that sister may be, God hears your groan. But the Bible tells us as Christians and saints, we must learn to bear one another's burdens. When I cry, you should cry. When I'm in pain, you are in pain. But because it's not your current circumstance, you should be able to hold your brother and sister up with your faith. Y'all ain't tracking with me this morning. We're living in a time that if we don't obey the word, he didn't just destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. He destroyed many of places, many of lands. And I bet you if the people that were destroyed was able to come back, they would tell you, if I could just do it all over again, I'll be obedient to your word. One more time. If you just let me do it one more time. So the Lord hears those that mourn. John chapter 14, verse 12. It says, most assuredly, some Bible says, verily, verily, I say to you, he who believes in me, the works that I do, he will do also. And greater works than these he will do, because I go to my Father. And whatever you ask in my name, that I will do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. But here's our verse for today. If you ask anything in my name, I will do it. You may be seated. Verse 14 is where we will pull over and get a few snacks and find a meal in the vending machine. if you would help me preach on the subject, the topic, Jesus answers prayer. Do you believe that today? Jesus answers prayer. If you believe that, let's celebrate him one more time. Give him a hand clap of praise. Jesus answered prayer. This book of John has been divided into 4 sections. The first section is what we call the prologue, the start, where Jesus is placed in a cosmic setting as one who gives salvation to the believers. Section 2 is considered books of signs, where Jesus shows us his public ministry of 8 miracles. Section 3 is considered the book of glory, where he gives his farewell story to the disciples and the story of his resurrection. Section 4 is the epilogue, which means the end, where he posts resurrection to his disciples. And he gives us a picture of who he is and what he's able to do with a conclusion. But this particular area of the text, as Jesus is speaking to the disciples in chapter 14, he's sharing with them about some things. When you look at chapter 14, right around the first couple verses, that there often will be times where you'll deal with pain that life has caused. You don't believe me? The Bible says in John 14, let not your heart be troubled. And that in itself is indicating that something tragic or drastic has taken place, or something tragic or happened will take place in those that may not have identified with tragic or disasters just yet. And you know what bothers me with Christians today is we act like we have never been through nothing. Oftentimes we act like we've never been through the struggle, but yet we don't even act like that God has truly delivered us from a place of tragedy. I mean, you don't always have to think about money or issues, but you can be dealing with cancer. You could have been dealing with high blood pressure or some type of diabetes or some type of other ailments in your body. That is tragic. When it comes to you not being able to do what you would have liked to do or do it the way you used to do it. I wish I had some 16-year-olds in here that can just stand up and say, this is what a 16-year-old should look like, but yet you're still 50. I see you in my eyes. But yet we ought to have some saints that can testify that I'm grateful that prayer brought me through. In fact, there ought to be at least 2, and I'll make 3 that can say, had it not been for the pain that I experienced in my tragedy, had it not been the issues that I'm dealing with right now, it would not have driven me to my knees to pray to a God that can answer. I'm saying if you ain't hollering, that can tell me that prayer works. So Jesus answered prayer, and when we look at John 14, he not only talks to the disciples, but he tells them right around verses 5, 7, and 8 that you'll have access. Right there in the Bible, when Thomas and Philip is talking to him, Thomas said, how do we know the way? How do we know what's going on? He told him, I am the way, the truth, and the light. He said, no man shall see the Father except. But let me share something with you. Too many people trying to go to God before you go through the Son. That's why your prayers ain't been answered, because you're trying to skip around the one that's interceding on your behalf. And so then he has to remind us that here it is as disciples, men and women of God, that Jesus answered prayer if you go through the right chains of command. Are y'all with me this morning? He tells the disciples this because there is a moment in their life where they're beginning to feel lonely and despondent. And I don't know if there's anybody here that ever felt lonely, though you have companionship. You lonely, you got a house full of kids, but yet sometimes you can get in your room and feel like you're all by yourself. You can walk on your job and be surrounded, but yet still feel all by yourself. But how many know when God is with you, the Holy Spirit is your partner? He'll make you feel like somebody is watching and I wish I had somebody that can testify and say, Reverend, I've been lonely sometime, but I thank God for Jesus that he didn't let me stay all by myself. In fact, I walked the bridge of troubled waters, but he didn't let me drown. In fact, I was dealing with thirst and hunger, but yet he didn't let me lose no weight. I thank God for Jesus. He says that there's an area where you'll have access. That's what he's showing the disciples. But then he tells you that there's nothing that I can't comfort you with. Because he says, though it appear that I'm gone, I'm going to leave you a comforter. And I got stuck there before I can get to my text, Brother Price, because some people walk as if they're not comforted. Some people walk as if they don't believe God can and God will. And here it is, truth be told, we as Christians should be walking like we know God is able. So then now the empty-minded, the empty and troubled at heart person can see this is what God looks like when he comforts you. He looks like strength. He looks like peace. And there's all kinds of joy. Why? Because he brought me through danger seen and unseen. And had he not been on my side with the comforter, I know I should have been dead a long time. I wish I had some delirious folk that could say I should have been dead a long time ago. But I thank God he left me with the comforter. I'm grateful for the Holy Ghost. And that's the same mindset we have as believers when it comes to even coming to church with worship. We act as though we're here by ourselves, though God has been with us from yesterday. And you know what? Sometimes I struggle with people that tend to, forget that God is a burden bearer. And that God is a protector, because there comes a time in life that he'll have you in a position to make you feel like you are open to the kill. It's kind of like a wolf causing delirious behavior to a sheep. Let me explain to you what happens. The wolf wants to devour the sheep, and what the sheep is doing, he's acting dumb, as the Bible says, sheep are dumb. But the wolf is one that tries to destroy the innocent. So then now the wolf would circle around the sheep constantly to make the sheep think that it's a pack of wolves that's after them. And then now when the sheep thinks that he's about to die, he lays down and the wolf attacks. But how many know when the enemy tried to destroy you, all you got to do is get down on your knees and show the enemy that touch not my anointing and do my prophet know how no weapon formed against you shall. I wish I had some sheep in the house that can say he was wounded for my transgression. He was bruised for my iniquity, and the chastisement of peace was laid upon him. By his stripes I've been healed. Yeah, so you got to know that the comforter is with you no matter what your circumstances look like. And so when you look at this text that we in John 14 verse 12, we're ready to hit the runway now. This text is considered as section 3, but yet as he's still speaking to the disciples, this section is considered the book of glory. But I almost would put an argument with that if I was able in my spiritual eye, because it looks like it's tied to section 2. I told you that section 2 is the book of signs. Jesus shows us the public ministry and miracles. But here it is. The reason why I say that is because we all know, had it not been for prayer, the very thing we're asking for or have asked for, had it not been for prayer, we would not have got it without a miracle. Hear me this morning. Some of us should be shouting because you knew it was God through your prayer that blessed you in a miracle situation. that it was going to take some type of prayer, some type of special touch that was either going to heal you or push you through. I wish y'all was with me this morning. Or push you through your storm. Somebody ought to shout out, I'm looking for a miracle. Yeah, so here it is. It's tied to that because here it is. Watch this. The text says, greater works than these shall he do. Why? Because I'm going to the Father. But let me show you how Matthew describes it, because what is the power? What is the greater works? Matthew 12 records it like this. If you have faith with no doubt, you shall not only do which is done to the fig tree, but you shall say unto the mountain, be removed, and then anything you ask you shall receive. But Mark gets a little deep. Y'all know Mark can be deep. Mark chapter 16 says, watch this, with that power you're able to cast devils and speak to the new tongues, and then that those that take up serpents, that means, watch this, you're able to identify snakes and you're able to pick them up even though they may bite you, but yet you won't be harmed because of what they look like. I wish I had some folk that could say, I picked up some stuff I shouldn't have picked up, but I thank God that he kept his hands of protection around me. In fact, there were some people in the church, on my job, at the school, just didn't mean me no good, but I thank God he covered me. So Mark says, watch this, he says, you'll do that. And he said, if you drink any deadly thing, it shall not harm you. But watch this, he says, then you shall lay hands on the sick and they will recover. And truth be told, we're not praying for enough folk. That's why we can't lay hands on people. And I'm talking holy hands. Some of us want to lay unrighteousness on folk because we're always ready to fight. Always ready to choke somebody. But here it is. He tells us that we have to understand that we have been given power to heal some folk. Sometimes, I don't know about y'all, but when my body's aching, I can't call my pastor in Rockford. I have to call on Jesus. And sometimes I know there's some prayer warriors here at True Spirit, but I can't depend on your prayer because you might be going through something. So sometimes I got to do like David said. I got to encourage myself. I have to put my hand on my head and say, Lord, stop this headache. Stop this wandering mind. Lord, ease this troubled heart. Lord, stop this bellyache. Lord, stop these aching pains in my leg, because God gives you the power to heal. Some of y'all shouldn't look at me with that tone, because here it is. Many of us, if we were really to take the mask off, we need prayer right now. And because of the level of pain you're going through, you don't want nobody to see that you're struggling with something. But I wish I could get about two to say, I don't care what nobody think. I need prayer right now. In fact, I'm going through some situations that only prayer can bring me out. I'm dealing with some things in my life that only prayer can see me through. Can I get three and I'll make four that can say, I know what prayer can do? So. Yeah, that's what Mark says. But let's talk to Luke before we get to the text. Luke 10 says, he shows us just point blank how powerful God is. Luke chapter 10, he says, in the text, he says, then 70 of them returned and told the Lord, watch this, the devil is subjected to us because of your name. Let me help you. Don't let your situations stop you from praying against it, because now your situations have to bow down to the name of Jesus. I don't know if you got something you're dealing with, but you need to put Jesus before it. Throw that name before Jesus and watch what Jesus will do. High blood pressure, he'll tear it down. Financial problems, he'll tear it down. Spiritual depression, he'll tear it down. All you got to do is say the name of Jesus, and it shall be given. Somebody look at your neighbor and say, I know what Jesus' name is. know what Jesus' name is. I know how powerful his name is. Yeah. And here it is. So he tells me that prayer is a strong weapon. But you got to know how to use prayer. And so let's look at the parameters of this prayer. As we look at this pericope, the first thing John shares with us is that prayer gives permissible power. That's what he was telling the disciples, that through me you'll have permissible power if you keep seeking me. Watch this. This word prayer in the Greek, protosia, means to pray earnestly, but to be intense with conviction and be serious about what you're praying about. And I discovered this, that we've fallen away from the old landmark. Y'all know what the old landmark is? How we would come and be doused in oil. And we'll touch our head, even ourselves, or even allow the preacher to touch. Not that the oil symbolized anything, but watch this. A good shepherd would put oil on the sheep to stop the bugs from biting. You just missed your shout. Sometime you got to come and get covered so the bugs won't bite you, so you won't get stung by the bee. Wish I had somebody that could say, I'm glad for the oil that covered me. It was my repellent when I was going through some stuff. It was my repellent when the mosquitoes was tagging me. But I thank God that he covered me with his oil and he blessed me with his blood. So now I cut. It's permissible power. We've went away from the extra pureness of the virgin olive oil. We've gotten so cosmetic that we don't see the power that exists in the oil, because the oil is pure. If I look at this bottle, there's no fat ingredients. In fact, there's nothing that can contaminate this because it's pure. That's why it's called virgin oil. And there's nothing in here that can change it from doing what it should be doing. And somebody should be shouting that God didn't change his mind, that he decided to bless you even though you didn't deserve to be blessed. He decided to heal you even though you didn't deserve to be healed. He allowed you to shout even though you ain't have nothing to shout about. But I thank God that God didn't let my past reflect my future. He smiled down on me, so now I can say, this joy that I have, I wish I had some testifiers. The world didn't give it, and the world can't take it away. I'm trying to preach. Y'all ain't hoping me this morning, because we should see a lot of prayer warriors that ain't gave up on the oil, Mama Neal. That shouldn't mind just getting the oil and just dumping it on themselves. All the trouble that we ought to just come into church. Every usher should give away a bottle of oil and just come on in and douse yourself, because some people just need to be covered even in the church. So, take a bath in it. Some of y'all sitting with these frowns on your face like God owe you something. You better pray that he don't take you out while you frowning, because that'll be an ugly funeral. I don't believe evangelists can change a frown into a smile, because if you die, the Bible says you'll die in that which you lived. So if you come in like you've been sucking on a bag of lemons and die, you're going to die with a frown on your face. But anybody that know what it feels like to be delivered, you got a reason to smile. You got a reason to shout, because this morning when I rose, I didn't have no doubt that the Lord will take care of me. Turn to your neighbor and say, stop frowning. He's been too good to you. He been too good to you to be frowning. Don't be mad at me. Be mad at the devil. I didn't sleep with you last night. And watch this. Let me go. I'm going to get a little snack now. I don't need validation from no friend to tell me how good God has been. I don't have to wait for somebody else to shout. I can shout now because I already got the victory. I got any shouters in the house that can say, I don't care what's around me. I lift up my hands in the sanctuary because God has been good to me. Yeah, let's. So prayer gives permissible power if you pray earnestly, but it has to be intense conviction. And I was stuck there in the mud because what is intense conviction? Can I help you? Intense conviction is the sin that you know you did. Y'all laughing? Some frowning. But it should be intense because we all know that we have sinned. You don't have to believe me. The Bible said we all sin and fall short. And watch this. Some of us have felt like we've gotten above sin. So then now we look down on the sinner that enters the church. It don't take all that. You don't have to be dressed like that to come in here. You shouldn't even be looking like that. You look like you just came from the club. But if they only knew what it took for you to get here. In fact, anybody else been busted and disgusted and came in the church just messed up. But thanks be to God, he didn't look at what you look like. He decided to look in on your heart. What's on the inside of man, so is he. So God accepted me in the condition that I'm in. Yeah, so it should be intense conviction. And let me say this before I move on. I struggle with Christians that's not convicted by the word to do better. Because here it is. The Bible says you're blessed when you're doers of the word. Not just hearers, but you have to be doers of the word. And don't you know we're living in a society that's calling out our fake card? Young people, y'all know I'm telling the truth. Y'all call a spade without even playing the game. Y'all already know what's phony and what's real. Baby, I love you. His daddy wasn't no good. Baby, I'm going to help you get a job. I wonder how she lost that one. The young people pick up on the fakeness of saints. Let me help you sanctify, folks, since y'all ain't testifying. God picks up on your unrighteousness. So now he exposes you. So now here it is. The prayer. Let me get to this text and get out your way. The text says that prayer gives permissible power. But he says in your prayer, watch this, prayer arrives through your worship. So then, therefore, there should be some sincerity when you pray. So now God can examine your prayer and your worship. And some people don't get it. Your worship has not gave you any returns because your prayer and your worship has not been sincere. You only pray and worship when you want something, but you won't pray and worship when you're going through. So then now in order to pray, you have to believe and go to somebody and believe he's going to give you what you're praying about. But to worship is to give back to the one that you know that gave when you were praying, when you didn't think you was going to get it. Y'all ain't tracking with me. Sometimes you just got to come in and say, Father, I stretch my hand to thee. Or all I give, Lord, I just give you everything because I ain't worthy of it and I don't deserve it. But God, I'm going to give you my best. On my job, I'm going to give you my best. At the school, I'm going to give you my best. At the church, I'm going to give you my best. In fact, I'm going to give you my best wherever I go because my anointing travels with me. In my car, I can drive and lift up my hands. At the grocery store, pushing my buggy, I can lift up my hands. At the GW, y'all know the Goodwill, I can lift up my hands and say, God, you've been good to me. You've been better to me than I've been to myself. So now, God, I worship you and I adore you because my worship is... Yeah. The prayer makes your request permissible Matthew 21 says, "And all things whatsoever you ask in prayer, believe it, ye shall receive." Your prayer allows you to prevail through your circumstances. Now, the disciples were concerned about circumstance. Now God is not with me. Are we still effective? Will we still be powerful? Will we still be looked at what we portray? Caught me there. Because people, when they see God, they see power. When they see the men and women of God, they should see power. But whenever they're in your presence, they should be able to feel some power. Help me, Holy Ghost. That's why we can't pray nothing out of our lives, because there ain't no power. That's why we can't shout with no power. We fake the dance when we should have power. That's why David danced when his clothes fell off, because he had power. And some Christians need to learn how to get some power. So now you'll be able to help some folk that's powerless. I don't know if you got children that just don't understand what prayer can do. You got power. You can touch them in the name of Jesus and they'll feel his presence. But how many know when you come into the house and you're seeking some power, how many know God is the power source? Somebody holler out, power up. Power up. Because the Bible says in James 5, when you got power, the prayers of the righteous availeth much. I remember coming up as a little boy. Oftentimes we would have neighborhood fights. Y'all know. We would even have issues at school. We played the game called King of the Hill. Y'all remember that one? And every day before before school, Granny would gather us in the living room after we've ate a few biscuits and fried a few pieces of bologna in the skillet, put them on some old bread. She would always pray with us before we went to school. And she would say, Lord, give them power and protect them as they go to and fro. Us being ignorant to the power she was praying about, we kind of looked at her and she, close your eyes when I'm praying. Trying to hope you, boy, close your eyes. And so we would get to school and we would act like we normally would, but when we got to playing King on the Hill, y'all know the rules of King of the Hill is there'll be one at the top of the hill and everybody has to try to get off the hill. And it seemed like everybody would have a turn to be at the top of the hill. But then it seemed like because we were powerful, it was hard to get us off of the hill. Why? Because when I was on the hill, my two cousins was on the hill. And when I was coming down the hill, my two cousins pushed me back up the hill. Somebody should know what I'm talking about. Some folk ought to be shouting that grace and mercy didn't let you fall off the hill. In fact, he gave you the power to stay on top of the hill. So now when the enemy comes, grace can move you along. Mercy can hold you up. And if all else fails, the Holy Spirit will keep you caught. Some of y'all done got so holy you won't think about them games you played. Reverend, I don't recall. That's never been in my lifehood. All I've played was hide and go seek. And y'all know, truth be told, some of us didn't just play hide and go seek. We played some hide and go. Help me, Holy Ghost. And y'all look at you. We done some unruly stuff. But we have to be thankful that God didn't let grace and mercy stay in our unruliness. Y'all with me this morning? Yeah, some of y'all don't even want to look at your spouse. You know that's how you got them playing hide and go seek. Don't want to look at her. Don't tell nobody how we met now. Don't you tell them I found you behind that oak tree on 751 Astrazon Boulevard. Don't tell them I I seen you at the Elks down there. Don't tell him I caught you behind the tree. So here it is. Y'all didn't think I knew about the Elks, but we had the Elks back in Illinois. That's where the old folks hang out, where the cougars chase the young folk. But the second thing in the text, not only is prayer gives permissible power, not only does it help you through your situation, but prayer promotes the promise. It's the relationship he gives us. It's part of the benefits that we gain through our faith, because our faith allows us to overcome our circumstances. Watch this. 1 John 5:5 says, who is the one who overcomes the world but he who believes that Jesus is the Son of God? That means the circumstances that he was telling the disciples you will overcome just by having prayer and faith. And we know that some things that we deal with in life, it causes us to really be challenged with our faith, and it causes us to pray even more. You'll hear me say it a little later, but some of us need to know that we need to get camel knees. Them knees that got rough skin that you just have to stay on your knees. And every time you fall, it won't cause no blood because you're used to being there. And I don't know if anybody here remember the days when the saints used to tarry on the front bench. They had camel knees. The deacons, the mothers, the ushers, even the choir directors would get on their knees and they would stay there until the Lord, the power of God came down. And if you was the sinner in the church, you had to stay on your knees even when everybody else was standing. I wish I had somebody just say, that was me. Yeah. So here it is. It promotes the promise. So Matthew 7 validates that. Matthew 7:7-8 says, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives. And who seeks finds. And to him who knocks it will be open. So then now it tells me that it's very important for me to pray if I want to receive the promise. In order for me to get the promise, I got to pray to the one that can complete the promise. But if I don't pray to him, then guess what? My prayers appear to be unanswered. But how many know when you pray to God, he'll do just what he said? Jesus on the main line. Call him up and tell him what you want. His line is never busy. Anybody called him this morning? How many know he'll answer your call? In fact, he got your number in his bosom. So now when you call, all you got to dial is 911, and he know that's his child. Anybody ever been in distress and know that prayer will change it? Yeah. So the prayer promotes the promise. But lastly, not only does prayer give permissible power, prayer makes a request permissible, and prayer promotes the promise. But lastly, prayer presents. Because here it is. Prayer presents two things: a physical drain and a spiritual tiredness. As the disciples were talking to Jesus, their focus was more so him not being there, knowing that the people that they would deal with would physically and spiritually drain them. But if Jesus was with them, they knew that God had it all covered. Y'all just missed that. If he's with me, I know he'll handle it. But if he's not, then I wonder if he's really going to take it for what it's worth. Watch this. There is a physical drain that causes an exhaustion in your prayer. And your exhaustion should make you develop perseverance. I know some people don't like to pray. Some people don't even make prayer a daily exercise. But here it is again. If you learn to pray and stay on your knees, Isaiah 40:28 says, he does not faint or grow weary in understanding his unreachable. He gives power to the faint and power to him with no might. But he also tells us that if you stay on your knees and wait a little while, They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up wings as an eagle. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. But Lamentations 2:17 says, the Lord has done what he planned. He has fulfilled his word, which he decreed a long time ago. God knew you was going to go through what you're going through. He just had to wait until you went through it to let you know what prayer could do. And some people should be shouting your troubles through because what you're going through, God already got it planned out. You should shout now because the victory is already over. Don't wait until later. Shout now because God will cover you in your mess. He'll protect you in the war. And if you shout now, I'm a survivor because he already promised. But lastly, watch this. The spiritual tiredness is that the spiritual tiredness is when you get weary dealing with the saints. That's the Bible. Reverend, that's the Bible. That ain't me. Because the disciples in Jesus dealt with the saints and the ain'ts. Y'all know who the saints is, right? And y'all know who the ain'ts is. And sometimes, watch this, the ain'ts have turned themselves into mini me's. Many Jesuses and junior gods. And so now the spiritual tiredness comes because you will get weary. And while you're praying, it would appear as if your prayer is unanswered. Come here, David. Talk to me in Psalm 6. He says, I'm weary with my moaning. Every night I flood my bed with tears. I drench my couch with my weeping. But he says further in Psalm 69:3, he says, I'm weary of my crying. My throat is dried. My eyes fail when I wait for the Lord. You just missed your shout. Some folk been crying. And you wonder, Lord, how long? How much longer I got to go through this? How much longer do I got to drink tears for water? How much longer do I got to change my pillowcases and get new pillows because it's full of water? They just won't act right. But how many know when you pray to God, he says, be not weary in well-doing. Prayer is a good thing to do. You will reap if I like to be a crybaby because I know there's a blessing behind every tear. These tears I cried are my last tears because I cried my last cry yesterday. Why? Because he let me make it to see a new day. Is there somebody here that can testify? I know what it feels like to cry all night long. I know what it feels like to drink tears for water. I know what it feels like to sit in my chair, worried, musted, and disgusted, wondering how and when. But how many know if you keep your hand in the winding chain, God will do exceedingly and abundantly above all things you can ever think or imagine. Why? Because he is powerful. So I can shout, victory is mine. Victory today is mine. If I hold my peace and let the Lord fight my battle. Victory today shall be mine. Victory on my job shall be mine. Victory in my present situation at my school or in my home shall be mine. Victory in the church, victory amongst my family, it shall be mine because Jesus answered prayer. So, my brothers and sisters, prayer is an essential tool that helps us to endure the present and forthcoming of issues. In fact, the Bible says in Daniel chapter 6, when Daniel knew that the documents had been signed, he went to his house where he had his windows up in the upper room, and they were open toward Jerusalem. The Bible said he prayed 3 times a day, which means Daniel was not ashamed to get down on his knees and talk to the Lord. Because if he was on prayer number 3, he knew what prayer 1 and 2 was capable of. And somebody today can testify that when the documents were written up on your life, all you did was get down on your knees and pray. Can I get a witness this morning? In fact, I believe a songwriter by the name of Leo Williams and the Spiritual QCs, he said, let's get down on our knees to pray. Let's get down on our knees today. He said, when you stay there, you need to learn how to stay on your bending knees. You have to stay there until the power of the Lord comes down. Can I get a witness this morning? But the Bible says that as he knew that the documents were signed, prayer is a conversation with God. That means that you have a direct connection, not through contemplation, but through meditation, and you have direct access to the Lord. Prayer is beseeching to the Lord and crying to heaven, seeking unto God and making supplication, drawing near to him. Ain't the Lord all right? And I don't know if there's anybody here that can testify that prayer is a strong weapon. Prayer is a tool that you found helpful in your journey this morning. Ain't the Lord all right? But is there anybody here that can testify with me that I once was sick, down on my sick bed, but I prayed unto the Lord, and I know what prayer can do? Is there anybody here that can testify that I'm a product of what prayer can do? Prayer will lift up a bowed down head. It'll ease a troubled heart. It'll soothe a sick mind. Won't prayer make the difference? Anybody tried prayer and know prayer will change things? If I can, I'll tell you a little story, and I'm going to get out of your way. There was a woman and a son that lived in a poor area. Her house was beat up and ran down, and a storm came, and she was a prayer warrior. The storm came and put holes in a roof where she would sit in the living room, and she would have to put buckets to catch the water that was falling down. But mama never stopped praying. Her son went off to school, got his degree, came back and said, Mama, you're still in the same position that you was when I left you 4 years ago. The water is building up. There are more holes in the ceiling. She said, I'm going to wait until my change come. He said, Mama, why? I got enough money. I could put you in a brand new house. She said, son, I'm going to keep praying until my change come. Later on that evening, there was a knock at her door. This woman's house was full of buckets. She went to the door. There was a man that knocked on the door and said, excuse me, ma'am, are you Sister So-and-so? She said, yes, that's me. He said, I'm from the Disaster Relief Company. She said, I understood that a storm came through and caused damage in your house. He said, I come to tell you that we're going to build you a brand new house. He said, all you got to do is give us this information, and we will build you a brand new house. What I'm trying to say, that is when you wait on the Lord, how many know God will renew your strength? Anybody prayed and know God will make a way out of no way? Though you're going through, all you got to do is pray about it. Though you're struggling, all you got to do is pray about it. When your family do you wrong, just pray about it. When your body ain't right, just pray about it. Can I get 2 and I'll make 3 that can celebrate with me? I know what prayer could do. Prayer lifted me up. Prayer kept me covered. Prayer put a protection in my life. I am a living testimony. Why? Because prayer brought me out. Anybody can testify that prayer brought you out. Let me tell you what prayer did. One Friday, he went on the cross called Calvary. They hung him high. They stretched him wide. They tell me he died. Didn't he die? He stayed there from the 6th to the 9th hour. All day Friday, all night Friday. They took him down, put him in the ballroom tomb. All day Saturday, all night Saturday. But let me tell you what prayer would do. Early Sunday morning, prayer got up with power in heaven and earth in his hands. What am I saying? If you keep on praying and trusting in God, he will answer your prayers. Be not dismayed. Whatever betide, God will. God will. Won't he do it? Say yes. He will. He will. He will make a way out of no way. He will answer your prayer. Can you slip your hand in your neighbor's hand and tell your neighbor, hold on, help is on the way. I prayed about it. I cried about it. And he told me everything is going to be all right. If you believe it, put your hands together and celebrate him, because you know what prayer can do. Do me one more favor. Just stand on your feet. If you've been through prayer, you know what prayer did. And just lift up your hands and say, I'm a survivor because of prayer. I'm a survivor because of prayer. Prayer will change. Jesus answers prayer. If you believe that, give him a hand clap of praise. For when I see Jesus, amen. For when I see Jesus, hey, amen.